Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm here with Nick DeSimone,
What's going on, guys?
out here from Boston. Came all the way to Michigan to learn more about taking his wholesaling business to the next level.
Yes, sir.
And he got started with JV Wholesaling, and we're looking to help you guys get started in your wholesaling journey as well.
Exactly. Guys, it's super easy. All you really have to do is just go on Facebook, start marketing yourself as a wholesaler, and start joining groups, helping people find buyers. And if you need help finding buyers, go to this guy over here at the Pickell team. He helped me get my first 5 deals. We're going to go over those a little bit. But yeah, it's very simple. It's very easy. You just got to take that action, take that first step.
100%.
Let's go.
So, when you're first getting started in real estate wholesaling and learning what it is, what made you jump right into it and learn about it and begin taking action? And what was that process to even begin taking action?
Totally. I think when I started doing real estate about 2 years ago, and I was doing commercial real estate, and that's what kind of started everything for me. I realized that real estate is something I enjoy doing and I want to do it, but what I was doing at the time wasn't for me. I was doing something that wasn't I knew deep down it wasn't what I wanted. I knew I wanted something more. To find that, I had to go on quite a journey of going back home, doing construction for a little bit, and that's where we reconnected. And I said to you, well, what are my options? Let's talk about it. And we just came up with the idea to joint venture wholesaling, and having ability to have access to over 5 million buyers nationwide was probably the most appetizing towards it, because you just got to go out and bring the deals.
For sure.
All you have to do is bring them to you, and you're going to bring the buyers, and then you're going to get paid. It's that simple.
If you have the buyer's relationship and know how to talk to these wholesalers, it's really infinite abundance, because there's deals being locked up, hundreds of them per day.
Exactly. Every day there's a deal being locked up.
Yeah. So what were you doing in commercial real estate, and then how did you go from living in Florida to going back to Boston?
Yeah, so I went to college in Florida. I graduated with my bachelor's in business management and sports and rec management. I got a job doing commercial real estate for a company called Cohen Commercial. Great company. They were the best. And we were doing mostly leasing and sale of owner-occupied, and then leasing of commercial shopping centers. That was something that I wanted to do because my family background was real estate development, and I wanted to have some kind of connection. So I went in that field. I didn't really want to sell houses. I didn't like the aspect of residential because of the more cookie cutter setup. I didn't really want that.
Yeah.
So I changed it up a little bit, and I went to commercial real estate. I found it was very successful, but it still was missing something. So what I did was I picked it all up. I moved back home because I knew that wasn't it. And for me to figure out what it was, I had to start fresh. So I picked it all up, went back home, started doing construction, and seeing all the success you guys were doing, all of that. And I was like, let me try to get back into something else.
For sure.
And that's when I found it. And that's where I've been now for the past couple of months.
Awesome. So even though you really found it when you were in Boston, you still had joined Sub 2 maybe a year or so before. So what was your decision making process on that, and then what happened between all that time for you to discover wholesaling is the best thing to do later on?
Totally. I joined Sub 2 January of 2023. That was the initial step for me, taking that next direction. When I made that move, I don't think I really had any plan towards it. I was just like, I'm gonna take this jump, but I don't know if I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
So I took the jump, tried utilizing it. That there wasn't enough time for me to incorporate it, and it was always a thing that I said I'm never gonna. No matter what, no matter how long down the road I use this, as long as I use it, it'll be worth it because it's lifetime. So I always had it in the back of my head. I always told you, I said, I just need to do one deal. Just need to do one deal.
For sure.
And when I moved home, I went back to a paycheck job, and I said, okay, let me take that for a little bit. And I did that. Then I got tired again, and I didn't want to do that anymore.
For sure.
So
it's tired working 12-hour days, either construction or when you were in college, working multiple jobs, doing Trading, right?
Yep. Trading, valet, restaurant, a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of jobs. It's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And college was a job for you too. So.
Exactly.
So during like you actually starting the wholesaling parts, like what did you have to figure out like during that first deal? Like what was like the tough parts like you had to learn throughout the process, like on your own with other people? And
Yeah, so I mean, I think when I first started, the challenges I had were understanding what a good wholesale deal was, and what a good dispo deal, like what's going to move fast and sell in the next like 2 or 3 days. That's what I had to learn. Obviously, over at the Pickell team, you have all the resources. You have the dispo, you have the acquisition. So there's plenty of people who could help out and say, hey, this is why this works. This is why this doesn't. So when I would get a good deal, I would think it was a good deal. I would send it over to the team. We would all review it and talk about it, figure out why it is or why it isn't. And then once we knew that, we would know whether or not we could sell it in a reasonable time. But I mean, I had the knowledge of real estate well before I went into wholesaling. I knew pretty much the ins and outs of commercial when it came down to the numbers and how it works. And then just YouTube, everything like that. I understood how to find a deal. I understood a lot of the terminology. What I didn't know was proof of concept. I didn't have the proof. That's the only thing I didn't know. Was the proof.
The proof of concept of you actually being able to do something on your own and take that jump forward instead of working for someone else's company.
Exactly.
So what was like the biggest thing to help you shift, like of knowing whether it's a bad deal or a good deal? Because like there's still tons of wholesalers who are struggling with this now, like where they're just over contracting, locking deals under contract without fully underwriting it, looking at the ARV or the as-is value, maybe the construction costs, rental, tons of different things. What was like the biggest thing for you, like, or like maybe a mix of all of it?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is if you're a wholesaler starting out and you have a buyer or you have a network of buyers or someone like Justin who you're sending your deals to, I would review those deals before you send them. Make sure that there's a good population. Make sure if it's a cash deal, the ARV is around 70% minus that rehab. And, spare that a little bit. Some contractors are not going to think that they're going to have either higher costs or lower costs. You can't just assume that, I think it's this, because somebody else who may have 10 years on experience on you may think it's even more. So you got to base your numbers off of something else rather than just what you know, especially when you start out. So utilize that, but also know deals that are going to sell quick, high population, 70% ARV minus the rehab. Obviously, you want more time and the lowest prices possible. So like, don't just lock up a deal under contract just because you think, like this person can sell it for me, because we can only sell good deals, great deals. We could sell the bad ones too, but you're more than likely going to sell the great ones the fastest. And you want to make sure if you are renegotiating a deal or structuring it, speak to the Pickell team. They'll help you negotiate. They'll help you guys get them under contract. You don't want to work on a deal and get it under contract and then waste time and energy on it. That's the biggest thing. So
time and energy is going to be the most valuable thing you really have, because there's too many different marketing strategies and you really got to narrow down on what you're going to focus on to get that deal. So like, how did you learn like doing the Facebook strategy with persistence and getting people to want to joint venture with you, and what was the learning curve to get started?
So I would say the biggest learning curve that I had was not letting these people walk all over you. I mean, they're wholesalers just like us. They are locking up deals just like us. A lot of them are locking up deals that they don't even know what they're doing, which is unfortunate, but that's what we're here for. We're here to educate them and make sure they understand why they're locking them up. So what I would say is when I first started joining Facebook groups, it was recognizing the real versus the wannabe. Having conversations over the phone, having conversations direct and saying, hey, like, is this your first deal? Is this something you've done before?
For sure.
Having the credibility of working with you and having other people who've done this before was a much easier route for me. because of that. But we're here ready to help other people too. It's not like we're just talking about our story. We're here to now give back and help.
For sure. So how did you like make that approach when it was like your first deal, like before you done all the deals you're doing currently? Like, how did you feel about like still dealing with someone who did their first deal and you haven't done your first deal and you're trying to both get your first deal at the same time? Or what was your first deal and like how did it exactly happen?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to each person trying to get their first deal, especially when, you know, you're new, like I said, I always feel like I had to level up because of my background. I always understood a little bit more than just the normal person when they first got into it. When it came to the first deal in Lorena, that deal was strictly through Facebook. I messaged a guy. I said, hey, you know, do you need help finding a buyer? We have a team that can dispo the deals nationwide. He goes, yeah. He goes, let's like talk about it. So me and the team, we got on a phone call with the wholesaler, talked about the deal, and we worked it out to where we each, you know, got a good assignment fee, and we brought the buyer within, I want to say 36 hours. Yeah. So it's really fast.
So buyer came in 36 hours. How long did it take for us to get it under contract, or it was already under contract with the wholesaler?
Yep.
So how long was he trying to promote it before we were able to dispo it?
I want to say he was trying to promote it for a week or two before we were able to bring the buyer.
So if he spent like 7 days, it took us a day and a half to get it done. It really just comes down to putting the deal in front of the right eyes and having that list of people.
Exactly. That's all it comes down to, is just getting the deal in front of the right people. You know, you can't sell it if the buyer doesn't see the right buyer doesn't see the deal.
The deal is that.
Yeah, exactly. So you just got to figure out a way. You got to maximize your options to put it in front of the right buyer.
For sure. So like, how was that first deal there like changed as you're like going on to your like seventh deal, I believe now? So like, what have you learned in between all those deals? Like, what was like, you got the proof of concept now, like you're taking action and you're really hungry for your first deal. So like, how did things transition where you started closing some more deals?
So I'd say from the first one to the seventh one, it's just understanding the process and the concept of each deal. There's steps. Like the first deal I didn't understand any of the steps. I didn't know from going under contract to getting it assigned to the new contract to the title, all of that. I didn't understand much of that. Now knowing how I can go into a deal, help somebody negotiate it, then even help somebody bring the buyer, then even help file it through title and do all those extra tasks, something 3 months ago I couldn't do or understand how to do.
For sure. Okay. So what were the things about the process, like the title? Was that the tough part because you weren't really handling much of that? Like you were like super focused on just finding the wholesaler. So like, what were you learning about communicating with all the wholesalers, the dispo manager throughout like each deal? Like how is it different? Like pushing those deals forward and what about the deals that didn't even close, like that you had?
Yeah, there were a lot of those. Communication is key when it comes to communication with wholesalers, communications to your own team, because with one deal, if you're not communicating with the wholesaler who sent you the deal, they're going to think you dropped it. They're going to be like, oh, this guy doesn't even care. Like, he doesn't even want to help. Yeah. Which isn't the case. You need to be able to, hey, look, we had a buyer who reached out, but now they're not really interested because of this reason. You need to be open about that.
For sure.
Because at the end of the day, honesty will get you farther than not answering at all. Yeah. Because if 100%. You're honest, you say, look, the deal just doesn't work. They're going to say, all right, like, why? Maybe a good wholesaler will ask why. Yeah. A bad wholesaler will say, oh, you're terrible at your job. Yeah. That's what you got to keep in mind too.
For sure.
So
we can go back and forth and fight about who's bad at their job, but it's just comes down to the underwriting, and each location has different buyers or deal types for cash, creative. Exactly. So like out of those 7 deals, like how many of them were like cash versus creative?
So 2 of them were creative.
Okay.
3 of them were cash, and 2 of them were are creative deals. So 4 were creative, 3 were cash.
Okay. So were they different kinds of creative deals? Were they all like sub 2 seller finance, maybe like a novation, or like?
So the first creative was a sub 2. The other creative was a sub 2 as well. It was a sub 2 hybrid. And then the other 2 were sub tails. So those were the versions of them.
Yeah, sub 2 hybrid, and then the Novations, and then one was a sub 2. You said.
Yeah. So the first one was the sub 2.
Yeah.
And then the other ones were pretty much hybrids. Everything else was a hybrid.
For sure. So, how many of your deals were like direct to seller versus the JV?
So we had 5 JVs, 2 direct to sellers.
Okay. So for the JVs, you were saying it's very important to get on the phone with them. So how do you actually get the wholesaler to want to be on the phone with you? Is it just only Facebook, or like what are you doing on Facebook, like to get their attention, be friends with them, and push it forward?
It's building a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Understanding that we're not here just to do one deal. We're here for the long term. We're doing deals inside the business as well as helping other wholesalers do deals. So we're not going anywhere. And it's about making that very clear to the wholesaler that, hey, look, if you have trouble finding a buyer on any deal you bring or any deal you get locked up, you want us to bring you a buyer, we can do that. And it's about, like I said, being honest, communicating. If you're upfront with them saying, hey, look, we're doing this many deals a month, let's work together and let's get you an extra 2 deals that you don't even have to worry about dispoing, because you're just the one locking them up, and then you're sending them over to us and we're handling the rest.
For sure.
So
out of those 5 deals, were any of them like repeat wholesalers or a new wholesaler each time?
So each one was a new wholesaler.
Got you.
But each wholesaler I've worked with on each 5 of those deals has continuously sent us more deals that we're working on closing.
For sure. So those relationships are being built. They believe that you actually have buyers now, since they've got money in their pocket now. They remember who you are.
Exactly.
So
that brings it back to the beginning of when I first started proof.
Yep.
People see the proof that we bring buyers.
Yeah.
Once they see that, they want to work even more together.
For sure. Now they might even work harder because they were only tied down to one market. Now they can jump into 50, 100 markets.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
For sure. So what made you want to make the transition for the JV deals into the pre-foreclosures?
So JV deals they're profitable. They brought startup capital.
Yeah.
And it's a good reoccurring business once you build those relationships. I mean, build relationships with these 5 wholesalers. If they're each doing 2 to 4 deals a month and they're sending me their deals, it's compound.
Yeah,
it's 20
for
deals.
Sure.
So
even if you get 25% of their deals, if there are 4 of them.
Exactly. So you're still doing an extra deal a month per wholesaler. So if there's 5, you're doing an extra 5 deals a month. The transition came from long-term wealth, long-term growth. There's a much more need in pre-foreclosures for people to help. So you're working directly. There's a motivation. You're going direct to motivation, and there's a time crunch. That checks off 2 of the boxes when it comes to wholesale deals. So once you can check those 2 boxes off, the rest is easy. The rest is just coming up with timeline and what do they need? Like what do they need out of the property?
Yeah.
And those things are, for the most part, workable. You can work through them all.
Got you. So what did you learn about like cold calling or door knocking, like these pre-foreclosures, or just messaging wholesalers on Facebook? Like, is the communication like tougher on one of them, or like is the response rate, like what are you learning from 2 different kind of prospects of people, different marketing channels?
So different marketing channels, I would say, at least with wholesalers, obviously it's very easy to communicate with them because they're active on Facebook, because they're finding deals, they're finding buyers on that platform.
Yeah.
So they're obviously active. When it comes to sellers, they don't want to be talked to. They're in a very hardship. They're in a bad situation. They don't really want to be
more pain.
Exactly. Wholesalers aren't in pain.
Yeah.
They're greedy. They're ready. They're ready to do another deal. So we're reaching out, getting them to that next chapter of getting that next deal.
For sure. They're more like a temporary pain of like,
exactly.
I don't have a buyer right now. I'm not good at my job. So can you help me find a buyer?
Exactly.
But
homeowners don't know their next step.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. So what we do is we can help offer that step. And that's the whole point.
For sure. Yeah. So we have to help them through the process of maybe saving their home, or like selling it. What is like the approach when you're cold calling versus door knocking?
So I'd say the approach is relatively the same. Door knocking, when you're face to face, you're definitely a little bit more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like that. I personally don't mind it. I would rather be face to face because from my past experiences, once I've made initial contact with somebody, we tend to build a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much like when someone sees you face to face and they recognize you the next time, it's gonna be even easier to talk to them.
Yeah.
When it comes to the phone, when you're on the phone with them, they're not necessarily as open because how many people did that same day did that person talk to? 10, 5, 10, 15, 20?
Yeah.
Probably. So when you're talking to them, you're just another number. You're not Nick. You're another number to them.
For sure.
When you're at the door, you're Nick. You're not a number. Because there's probably only a handful of people who've knocked that door.
For sure. So, like, what's the answer rate, like, success versus calls versus foreclosure? I mean, like, the knocking, the foreclosures. Like, you tried Boston, you tried Michigan now.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so, I mean, I would say calling is fairly low for people who would answer. Also, maybe depends how you're calling and the way you are, what time. It always comes down to the timing and what day. When it comes to door knocking, if they're home, they'll answer most of the time. There's times where they won't answer because they just don't know most people don't want to open the door.
Yeah.
But I would say door knocking over time is going to be more efficient because your chances go up much higher when you're talking to the person face to face.
Yeah. So you'll get your money faster, or does it? What's the process?
You'll solve the problem faster.
Yeah.
I mean, the money will come. When you get to that door, it's not about the money. It's about separating yourself with the person who's knocking on the door and just asking, "Do you want to sell?" When I'm knocking on the door, we're offering how we can help.
Yeah.
And if they don't want to sell, they're gonna want to know how we can help.
For sure. So, what did you learn about like the people who have no redemption rights versus they do have redemption rights? Like, is that like change up their personality of like how they think about their situation? Or
personally, I don't think many people know about redemption rights. I don't think many homeowners know about that.
Okay.
Because it was something that was news to me.
Yeah.
As I learned about it, but I don't think you'd be surprised how not little knowledgeable these people can be when it comes to their home that they live in every night. It's unfortunate how little information lenders, mortgage companies provide on if they get into a little bit of a bind on how they can get out of it.
For sure. Like, I spoke to a guy the other day, like, let's say the house sells at $100K, like, at the auction. Like, in Michigan, since there's a redemption period, he can help them, like, if the house can, like, they call it overage or something. So, like, they can help collect that overage even though the house is gone. The redemption period's passed, but they can still get some money on the sale.
If it bids over, basically. It bids over the total mortgage. It's the overage. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so, I mean, like, basically what he's saying is if
the sheriff sales at 90 and sold at 100, then they'd like have 10 grand for themselves. So
exactly.
There's people who can help with that 10 grand, and he charges like 25% to collect that overage for them. So he created a whole new business of helping people through those foreclosures. You got the loan modifications, the reinstatements, the potential novation, sub 2, cash, bankruptcy, short sale, and then you got the overage.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's plenty of ways you can help someone when it comes to like foreclosure, especially when they're in a situation where it may not be necessarily easy for them to move. Yeah. So it's just a matter of getting out there. You know, we're in a business where all you have to do is take action, fail forward. The worst thing you can do is not give it a shot. I mean, if you're new, if you're just starting out and you need help finding a buyer, and you're locking up deals that you can't sell, there might be something wrong. So if I were you, I would contact Justin or John Pickell, reach out to them, see how they can help you lock up those deals more efficiently, make more money, and then have them dispo the deals And if you're looking to connect and you need a wholesaler who has that connection already, you can reach out to me, and we're happy to work together. We're in it for the long term. We're not going anywhere. So it's a matter of getting in front of everyone and seeing where you can help, because the worst thing you can do is ruin an industry by running around not knowing how it works.
For
and
sure.
That's what a lot of wholesalers do. They run around not knowing how something works, and you deal with a lot of sellers who have been burnt.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting here trying to rebuild that relationship for no reason because a wholesaler screwed over that person.
100%. That's why we all got to make sure as many wholesalers as possible are educated on how the actual process works. For whether you're a wholesaler, rental, flipper, we're all communicating, helping each other get deals done. So, like, what are some of your next steps in your journey, and where are you going in like the next 6 months to a year? Where can people help you, and where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, hit me up on Instagram and DeSimone and I. Where I'm going pre-foreclosures, JV deals, direct to seller, direct to wholesaler. It's a matter of just helping as many people as I can now and figuring out where I can give my part and build a team of my own like Justin has, and just do as many deals and help as many wholesalers as possible. That's the main goal.
For sure. So you're going to help them out with the pre-foreclosures, JV deals, any acquisitions or whatever they need on the dispo side?
Absolutely. If anyone needs help locking up pre-foreclosure deals or not knowing how to talk to a seller, shoot me a text, give me a call, DM me on Instagram. Let's figure out a way to work together. We're going to get you paid. You're going to lock up deals, and you're going to learn so much that you won't necessarily have to rely on someone else to lock up deals. And that's the whole point.
Beautiful. So you heard it here. Hit up Nick DeSimone or Nick DeSimone and
Let's go.
Justin Pickell. So we'll help you get your deals to the finish line.
Shoot us a message, guys. Thanks.
Yep. Have a great one.